Welcome back to PhantasmaCast, folks. I'm Jake.
And I'm Derek.
And this week, we're watching two of our favorite Tom Atkins movies.
One being Night of the Creeps.
And two being Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
And no, this isn't Bozo the Clown. Thrill Me.
What do you know about two certified bankers? PhantasmaCast.
What'd you buy this week, Derek?
Oh man, what didn't I buy would be a more apt question.
Yeah, I saw your list,
Yeah.
and I felt inadequate, to say the least.
My bank account would disagree with you. Actually, these were great deals. So like,
Yeah.
Kino Lorber had a great deal, which you ironically told me about.
Oh, yeah. Tell the story.
Okay. You just texted me. I think it was just Kino Lorber sale, eyes emoji.
Yes.
And I was like, oh. So then I looked at it and then just sent you a screenshot of my cart, or you sent me a screenshot of yours. It doesn't matter who went first, but we was like, showed you mine if you show me yours. And then I was like, yeah, like a couple days later, I was like, so when's yours coming? You're like, I didn't buy any. I was like, what the fuck? I dropped $70.
It's like I told you about some good shit down the street, and you went, and I stayed home.
I was like, yeah, that crack dealer was pretty nice, right? What crack dealer? You didn't buy the crack, bro? So aptly enough, I realized I didn't own Night of the Creeps because I've just been watching your copy of it. So I went out and bought the Night of the Creeps, the Scream Factory Blu-ray for that.
You were on the hunt for it, though, for a long time, and all you could find was like the non-Scream Factory ones.
Yeah, or I think they had like the full priced one.
Yeah,
in a store, so I was just like, fine. I just went through Scream Factory, their website directly, and knew that I wasn't gonna get a sleeve, but hoped and prayed that I would. I didn't. I'm a sleeve guy. I'm coming out and saying I'm a sleeve guy. I love sleeves. I would die for sleeves. So that's one of several. Stay with me here, folks. I also got, so the Kino Lorber sale, I got 3 Days of the Condor.
And what's our favorite part about that movie?
Oh, the tagline specifically on this version of it, because it's like 3 days and like in 72 hours, everyone he knows will try to kill him.
It's so badass.
It's so cool. And I fucked it up, but it is cool. It's better than the regular Blu-ray release of it, which just says, trust no one. Or something like that. It's like, okay, that could be the tagline for like Salt.
Any spy movie.
Any spy
really,
movie, yeah. Double Walker. This one was, my dad showed me a trailer for this, and I was like, this looks sick as hell. I think the concept is just that this dead woman is haunting this town where she died, and is kind of following this guy who can see her for some reason.
Yeah.
And she's also trying to solve her murder, I think, too. At the same
Okay.
time. Yeah. Man on the Moon.
That's the Jim Carrey like biopic movie.
Yeah. For Andy Kaufman.
And yeah, Andy Kaufman.
Yeah.
I always wanted to see that.
You haven't seen it?
I've never seen it. It's always been like on my to watch list, but I hear it's genius.
Okay, listeners, my mouth is literally open because that's the movie you showed me of like, hey, the Kino Lorber sale, and it was Man on the Moon.
Yeah,
thinking,
exactly.
Oh, I'm just going to snag this up because it's one of my favorites. And you lied to me twice, I feel. Like, I haven't seen it? Oh, my God. Yeah, it's great. It's great. I'll let you borrow it sometime.
Yes. Much like my copy of Night of the Creeps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full circle. The Producers. I got the Producers Blu-ray finally. I've been holding on to my DVD copy of the Producers forever. Just because the original Producers, I should stress. Just because I love the dynamic between Gene Wilder and Zero Mostel.
Yeah.
Thirst. Got Thirst. Need to keep upping my Park Chan-wook collection. So
I love that movie. I showed it to Brittany a couple months ago. And she did not. She did not appreciate it.
It's not for everyone, for
Yeah.
sure. I love it too. To Live and Die in L.A., another one.
Uh-huh.
Another blind buy, but it's just I was on a Friedkin tear for a while, so I'm like, let's do it.
I feel like there is some connection to Live and Die in L.A. and my pick.
Oh.
And I'll tell you what it
Okay.
is when we get to my thing.
Yeah, in like 10 more movies.
Yes. Hurry up, bitch.
I'll get through it. This one's quick because now we're done with the Kino sale, everyone. John Wick Chapter 4.
Because you love the John Wicks.
Yeah, who doesn't? Yeah, and I got the 4K because I've been waiting for that because I want to see that fucking thundering punch in glorious 4K in the beginning. I love that opening. I got Freaky, that horror comedy.
Is that the Vince Vaughn movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think Catherine Newton. I also picked up this Muppets double feature for. Actually, it's the Muppets Treasure Island and the Great Muppet Caper. Then I got My Neighbor Totoro, Ghibli movie, just adding it to the collection there. And finally, the end of the list is here. Eastern Promises. I got this is also a Kino Lorber, but it wasn't on sale.
Not
I
a part
paid-
of the sale.
Yeah. I think I paid full price for that, or I maybe got a slight discount.
Uh-huh.
I think I got the used copy of it.
That's one of the like non-horror Cronenbergs, right?
Yeah.
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 Also
which
haven't watched it. It's another Kino movie I haven't watched. I'm sorry.
I hope you're embarrassed. End of podcast. But yeah, I've only seen this like once, so I really need to revisit it and get a more fresh opinion of it. But that's my list. What was on your list?
So I was just kind of scrolling through Instagram and came across this post from the Criterion channel.
Okay.
And it was Bill Hader.
King.
Like, who knew he was such a cool like movie buff, you know? Like, I feel like that's coming out, like, you know, since he's become like he's directed his own like TV show and everything.
Yeah. After I got obsessed with Barry and was like on the Bill Hader train, I was like, yeah, he's great. I want to listen to him. I want him to be my friend. I want to grab a beer with him.
Yeah. He's seen all the movies I haven't seen that I've told you that I haven't seen in this. But he was going on about, like, they did this feature with Bill Hader talking about this movie because it was a new release for Criterion called The American Friend, which I had never heard of before. I'd never seen.
Me neither. I hope that makes you feel better.
But he was, you know, he's talking about how like cool the movie is. And I don't know what it's about. All I know is that it has Dennis Hopper, a young, good-looking Dennis Hopper.
Okay.
But like, you know, to your surprise, dear reader, that's not the first thing I noticed about this movie that I liked. It was the cinematography. It is a 1970s like texture, like in the shadows, really interestingly lit movie. The cinematographer is Robbie Mueller. And
No way. Okay, go on.
yeah, so I was like, it's one of the few movies I have ever decided to buy because of how it just looks, right? You don't make that decision much anymore these days because everything's flat as shit. But no, yeah, this one is very interestingly lit. And Robbie Mueller, if I'm not to be mistaken, was the cinematographer for To Live and Die in L.A.
Okay.
We accidentally got two movies with the same cinematographer. So I thought that was really cool. Like, I when I was looking through his IMDb list too, I noticed he also did one of my other favorite movies, another like really well, interestingly lit movie, Repo Man. Have you ever seen Repo Man?
Yeah.
It's weird. It's like, but it's like really just kind of fun.
The thing that sticks with me from Repo Man are the food items that he has in his apartment.
There's like
just
no
the white
branding.
boxes.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like cereal or food or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Beer.
But yeah, I only picked or purchased that one movie compared to your list. It was not a very active week for me.
You have restraint.
I have, I have very specific tastes now. But on to the movies we're going to be talking about. Night of the Creeps and Halloween 3. Why did we pick these movies?
To be very honest, it's just because I wanted to talk about Tom Atkins.
Yes.
And have it recorded and just be like, oh, who's my favorite? Listen to this episode.
To immortalize your love for Tom Atkins.
Yeah, he's just a comforting presence when you see him on the screen. At least now that I know him. If you know him, you go, that's Tom Atkins. That's my guy. He's got the goods. But if you don't know him, you'll be like, who's this fellow with the big head? I've got a big head. I can say this. Okay? It's okay. But yeah, you'll be like, he's got the goods. He'll just steal every scene he's in with pure charisma alone.
He's not your typical leading man,
No.
right? He's a little rough around the edges, right? But despite that, dripping with charisma, right? Every scene he's in is a scene stealer. Like you're watching just him.
Yeah.
And so he is a pretty big character in both of these movies, and I think it's these two movies where he gets to shine the brightest, I think, in a lot of the movies that he's done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I favor Night of the Creeps just a little bit more just because he gets to go like to 11.
Night of the Creeps is more fun. It's a more fun movie.
Yeah, so
sure.
if there's any movie to convert you to the Church of Tom, patron saint of horror, Atkins, it's Night of the Creeps.
Pop in Night of the Creeps.
Yeah.
We've talked about Tom Atkins before on this podcast.
Oh yeah, The Fog.
He was in The Fog.
Yeah. You know who else is back? Not for Night of the Creeps, but Halloween 3.
Dean
Cundy. The Dean of Darkness descends upon us once again.
Yeah, I think I wrote in my notes, I was like, Dean is back, baby.
They got Dean on the horn again.
Fucking Bruce Willis comes in. It's Dean, baby.
It's Dean, baby. Halloween 3. I'm upset
done.
with myself.
We're done.
Yeah.
Let's dive in. What is Night of the Creeps about? I feel like that one's your movie.
Okay.
So tell us, what's Night of the Creeps?
Okay. There's like the frame narrative, which is about Tom Atkins's character. Wow. Can I not say that?
Tom Atkins character.
Tom Atkins's.
Just Tom Atkins.
No sisses?
No. You don't need assistance.
You don't need a sis?
No.
Wow. I thought
Yeah.
there was a need for assistance. I need assistance.
We're turning into a fucking Seinfeld episode.
The frame narrative is about Tom Atkins' character, Detective Ray Cameron, having this like recurring nightmare come back to actually haunt him. That's been haunting him for his whole life, which doesn't sound like that fun of a movie, but it's done so well because he's kind of introduced in like a side channel through this other story about this kid who just wants to get a girlfriend.
Right. Like the quote unquote main characters of the movie eventually run in, they cross paths with Tom Atkins' character.
Yeah. And like Tom Atkins, he starts to steal the movie. And like it's the Detective Ray Cameron show.
Yeah.
Once he becomes part of the picture. But yeah, it's ostensibly about this guy Chris and his best friend JC, which stands for John Carpenter.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. And yeah, everyone is named after like big directors of the time.
That's a thing that you kind of realize maybe like 20 minutes into the movie. You're like, oh, all these like names keep popping up, like Detective Raimi or
Yeah, Sergeant Raimi, Detective Cameron.
a lot of the characters like names are referencing horror icons, other horror icons.
Yeah. So if you don't love that, then fuck you. You know?
But see, I think that is kind of emblematic of what this movie is, and it's, you know, I think it's like one of the earlier kind of self-aware horror movies that you see that reference horror movies in the movie, right? Tear your heart out scream, but no, yeah, this movie was you know, a little bit meta in the fact that not only do you have these like horror icon names as the characters, right, but it kind of plays with a lot of the tropes of especially like 50s horror, right? Like there's that whole sequence where we're introduced to the kind of character arc of Tom Atkins, right? Where his like high school sweetheart's going on a date with another guy, and they go to Lover's Lane, and you know, it's a black and white sequence, right?
Immediately after following the, like you were referencing, the 50s style thing of like aliens being like the scariest thing you can imagine.
That I completely forgot about. The bonkers as fuck like opening scene with the aliens,
with the naked little aliens. And they slam the door closed, and they're like, damn, I think is the first word that you see translated on the damn.
These aliens that look, their faces look a little bit like the aliens from Spaced Invaders. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
I have not.
But yeah, the movie opens hot. Like there's one naked alien being chased by like two other naked aliens with guns. And you're like, what the hell's
He's
happening?
got the thing. He's going to release the thing. And he releases the thing. The thing lands on Earth where...
Yeah, they're like, that experiment can't get out. And then it lands over this Lover's Lane area, right? And the guy that Tom Atkins' high school sweetheart is with gets out to investigate this like thing that fell out of the sky. I don't think we get to see what happens to him.
Well, the creeps fly into his mouth, and that's the last we see of him until
we do see
present
the
day.
creep fly into his mouth. Okay.
Yeah.
But then we cut back to the girl, and there's like an announcement on the radio that like a psycho has escaped like a medical facility, and he's armed and dangerous.
He's got an axe.
Be on the lookout. Yeah. Which is, you know, that itself is a reference to like like the urban legend, you know, of like the guy with the hook, you know. So it like immediately the movie steeps itself in, you know, we're playing with these tropes of the genre. So then we come back to modern day, which is 1980s,
the pinnacle of culture,
right? And we come in with our two, you know, ostensibly our two main characters, Chris, played by Jason Lively, who a lot of people know from European Vacation. He plays Rusty in European Vacation.
Yeah, like I think that's the movie he did right before this.
Yeah. And then who I think steals the show a little bit and is more of the main character. I want him to be the main character.
Absolutely.
But JC, played by Steve Marshall, he's kind of like he's kind of like Chris's sidekick in a way. He's, you know, he's shorter, has kind of like a higher pitched voice, and walks in crutches. He needs crutches to watch, right? Like,
yeah, he has a physical impairment.
Yeah,
but my man's mentally sharp.
He is. He's so funny. He's quick. He's witty. And I was watching one of the special features, and the actor that plays JC, he had asked the director, Fred Decker, you know, what's the, like, why does he need crutches? Like why his impairment? And then Fred Decker like never, you know, would tell him. And so, he came up with an explanation on his own, I think. And I think it's a damn good explanation.
Let me hear it.
He basically, because of his impairment, he kind of as a character, decides to put himself in the back seat so that he can support his best friend, Chris.
That's very sweet.
And then has developed this kind of hard, tough exterior, wisecracking exterior to kind of deflect off of what he sees as kind of like his biggest weaknesses, his flaws, and so that's why he kind of fearlessly goes out and tries to matchmake. Like, so Chris is like in love with this sorority girl, but he's too much of a crybaby to do anything about it.
He's just blubbering, which is why you as like a viewer are like immediately like, oh, this other guy, his friend is cooler because he's just like, he's gonna go out and do it.
He's immensely cooler. And so he walks up to the sorority girl. What's her name?
Cynthia.
He walks up to Cynthia and is just like, hey, my friend loves you. You should go talk to him.
But first he has to finesse the jock out of the situation with the unibrow.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, what's your name? Because he's just a dumb jock guy chewing gum, just smacking his lips. He's like, yeah. He's like, hey, what's your name? He's like, Brad or some shit. And he's like,
the Bradster.
Oh. No, that's because that's her actual boyfriend. It's some other guy.
Okay.
It might just be Steve for all we know. It doesn't matter. He's like, yeah, there's a call for you. He's like, thanks, dude. He's like, no problem. He's like, look how easy it is to just move this guy out of the picture. Anyways, my friend is in love with you. Yeah. He's the guy over there. And then we cut to Chris and he's like spilling things. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry to everyone around him. He's like,
they look at him and then it cuts to him. He sees that they're looking and he turns.
Yeah.
And spills his drink.
Yeah. He's like, that smooth devil over there or something. Yeah. JC rules.
Yeah. I think immediately in the movie you're like this is just a good time, right? Like,
yeah.
And Fred Decker, the director, I think, I think it's a shame that he hasn't gotten to direct that much more movies. I think he went on to make Monster Squad, and like a handful of other things.
Damn.
But like visionary, right? He came at this movie with everything he fucking had.
Yeah.
I think the thing that sets this whole story in motion, right, is they think that she won't date him unless he is in a frat, right?
Yeah,
and
that's the Chris line of thinking.
Yes.
I know what she likes, guys that aren't me. I'm going to be that guy.
Yeah. And so they decide to pledge, and then, as their like initiation, they're like, go take this cadaver in this lab and put it on the steps. Put it on the steps of Omega House. You know?
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think we don't even know the plan. We were just told that they have to do something.
Yes.
And then it's kind of like when they just start doing it, we're like, wait, what are they doing?
Yeah.
It's
already
an ingenious
on their way to the thing.
Yeah, it's a really good way of getting us leaning forward as an audience member to be like, yeah, what the hell are they going to do? I want to know what happens next. By just withholding that.
This movie fucking runs.
Yeah. But that's when we meet the Bradster, because the Bradster gave him that.
Yes.
That mandate there. That blonde, chiseled man.
Aryan.
Yeah, Aryan is a word. But they go to get the cadaver, and the cadaver that they happen to come across is
the guy that had the creep fly into his fucking mouth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Classic Spanky.
When they open up, he's like being cryogenically frozen for some reason. He's like an experiment.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just I love that cryogenically frozen like area. And before we even get into the whole cryogenic frozen room, we're backing it up a little bit. I just love the scientist who is trying to get into the room, who can't remember his door code, who gets 3 of the 4 digits down and then like does like classic like, oh dear, I can't remember the 4th code, so I gotta leave.
Call someone to be like, what's my code?
Check my notebook. Yeah. Not that one, the red notebook.
I love that you brought that guy up because he's a character actor that you like have seen a million times. David Paymer. And I think the first movie that comes to mind when I think of him is a movie called Carpool. Do you know what that
Carpool?
movie is? Carpool, yeah.
No. Carpool?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
What is this?
I think this is fun.
Yep, here you go again. Referencing a movie I've never heard of. I think you're making it up, but go on.
Carpool. Okay. Carpool is about this dad who's like, he's taking his kid. I don't remember. It's a movie that came out in like the late 80s, early 90s. This dad is taking his kids and like a couple of their friends to like school or like a field trip or something, right?
Okay.
And then at some point, someone like hijacks their car.
What?
Yeah. And they go on like this like really zany journey, and it's like one long car chase movie, and the guy that takes over the car is Tom Arnold.
No. Okay. You had me on the edge of my seat because I was like, as soon as you said Tom, I was like, Atkins? He's back?
No. That would be amazing. No, but yeah, so David Paymer, great character actor, he fucks off to go figure out what his code is, and then JC and Chris I don't know how they get into the room.
I remember exactly. JC just goes 0 and the door opens. He's like, oh, well, here we go. Yeah, let's go get that body.
And that's why he's the coolest.
Yeah. But I love that room because it's the classic, like, as advanced as computers could be at that time, which is just
a bunch of blinking lights.
Blinking little squares on board. Like, ooh, top secret. And I love that.
And they and again, he just hits a random button.
Oh, that one was clearly labeled like release or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he decides to open it with his crutch. You just see the crutch come into frame very slowly as he goes to press the button. Oops, did it.
Body falls out, and they get freaked out and run away, basically, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they attempt to like bring him out of the room, but then I think they hear something.
David Paymer coming back.
Yeah.
Right?
And they go, oh, run.
And then at that point, the creep comes out of the stiff's mouth, jumps into David Paymer's mouth, and we cut away.
And then the second best guy in the movie gets got.
Yeah.
I say that only because when we were watching it, my girlfriend said, "That's you." Not when he got killed, when he forgot the code. I should stress that. I was like, yeah, that would be something I do. Okay,
yeah,
fair.
And then flash forward, we enter Tom Atkins, right?
Yeah.
And he's asleep in his like it looks like he lives in a bungalow. Like I love the production design that they did on his like house, because it looks like he like lives in like a 1930s like private detective like
okay.
office, right?
Like his room is behind his office.
Kind of, yeah. And he's like wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and you can tell he's like asleep because he's drunk himself asleep. He's got all these like hard-boiled detective novels in the background.
Yeah.
And he's having this dream. What's the dream?
Oh, the dream is the dream. He's just in an all-white suit, sunglasses on, sipping a coconut cocktail kind of thing. Well, a beautiful woman in a bikini serves it to him, and he silently accepts and just keeps sipping.
And he's staring out into the ocean.
He's on the beach staring out. And
then this gorgeous woman rises up out of the water.
Yeah, a very young woman.
Yes,
because it's the woman from the beginning.
It's the woman from
in the car going, "Oh no, the axe murderer's on the way.
Yeah,
come back."
And from at that point, you're like, "Wait a minute, what? You know,
what the heck's going on here?"
And then he gets woken up by a phone call. Picks up the phone.
Thrill me. I have never fallen harder for a character than in that moment of right then and there of thrill me. thrill me, I'm on.
You know exactly
I'm on
what this
board.
guy's all about.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Right? He comes to the lab and he's like, I thought we were supposed to be, I thought the report was that there were 2 bodies. There's only one here.
Yeah. He's like, what, did it have a date? To get up and walk away? Yeah. But when he first shows up on the scene, this was mere moments after the initial thrill me, is someone goes, Detective Ray Cameron? And he goes, no, Bozo the Clown. Thrill me.
We get hit with another thrill me.
Yeah. I'm like, that's his catchphrase. And it would be corny coming out of any other man. Mm-hmm. But again, this man has his charisma
Tom
dialed
Atkins sells it.
Yes.
Yes.
And I am buying.
First in line.
I'm buying his whole shtick, even when he throws out even weirder, like, old manisms, you know, at the time. Like, in retrospect, these are very old manisms. Like, he calls Chris and JC, when he eventually gets a hold of them and brings them into custody, he calls Chris Spanky and JC Alfalfa.
I love that because you and I laughed, and then Mickey was like, what is that?
Yeah.
We're old men now.
We are.
There are a lot of callbacks in this movie. At the beginning of that scene where he brings them in to, like, talk to them about, you know, whatever happened.
Yeah.
He says, the janitor says he saw you two running by screaming like banshees on the way out of
Man. We loved that so much. When we first saw this movie, that's all we thought about, honestly. Most people would be like, yeah, thrill me. We were like, screaming like a banshee.
Screaming like a banshee. So there's this like janitor, and like he only has one line, and he just keeps repeating, screaming like a banshee. So funny. It's so funny. But then, you know, from there, basically the creeps start to take over, right? It's kind of like that movie Slither. Where they're slowly infecting people and turning them into zombies.
Yeah, Slither borrows heavily from this movie, I think.
Yeah. And like, what are the creeps? They're just these like little leech things, right?
Yeah. They move so fast that you really can't get a good look at them. You just get the gist that they slither across real quick, and then they're in their mouth, and then they're eating your brain.
I love that setup. And again, you know, this movie's all about kind of referencing the sci-fi horror genres. But not only is it a creature feature, right? Because you've got these little monsters. It's also a zombie movie too.
Yeah. And Atkins has a great line about zombies. He's here, I wrote this down. Zombies, exploding heads, creepy crawlies, and a date for the formal. This is classic Spanky. And that's right before, this is a great segue into the best fucking scene in the movie. And I know you know what I'm talking about. Do you want to talk about that scene, or do you want me to take it? Do you want to know something about your girlfriend's, her sorority house? Do you want to know something about that, Spanky?
I think that is the best scene of the movie. Shit's hitting the fan. Chris doesn't know what's happening, so he's like, where am I going to go, right? I'm going to go to... I almost called him Detective Chalice, but that's his name in Halloween 3. What is his name again?
Cameron. Ray Cameron.
He goes to Ray Cameron's house, right? And there's a brilliance to the way that this scene is shot, because it starts just on Tom Atkins, and you think he's in the midst of another kind of drunken kind of, you know, depression, right? And he's just staring at this lighter. And you're like, oh, okay. He's sad. And then Chris is knocking on the door. He's like, let me in. And, you know, he's like, go away.
Yeah.
let me in. And then so he decides to get up, and he walks over to his stove, and the stove is open and the gas is on.
Yes.
And you're like, oh my God, he was about to blow himself up. And he lets him in. And am I right? Is this that scene?
I think it is, because it's right after JC has already been unfortunately killed, which I think is I think it needed to happen for Chris's character. It still hurts.
That's the worst crime of this movie, is that JC.
It hurts. He didn't even get the wipe. He died in the bathroom, by the way. I guess that's good context. What do you mean he didn't get the wipe? Yeah, he died in the bathroom, unfortunately.
He didn't die in the bath. He got infected in the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why, I think you're going to talk about it in a minute, but that's why it's so sad what happens later. But, basically Tom Atkins, starts telling him, and it's basically his like rubber ducky moment. He starts telling him about, goes back to the beginning. The woman in the car was his high school sweetheart, the woman he was in love with, and he was responding to a call as a young beat cop, right? Yeah. And I think the way that they shot it is really cool because like it shows the psychopath just like using an axe to hit something, right? This is like the flashback.
Yeah, and there's already pieces of the body in the road.
And at first it's just on this like young cop, and then it cuts back to the psychopath using his axe, and then it cuts back to like the same shot, but it's Tom Atkins like as he is today, holding a shotgun.
Ray Cameron then, Ray Cameron now.
He doesn't kill him at that moment.
No, because the way he leads into it is another example of like how well this movie is written, despite it being like really fun and it just moves along. It's still well written. He says that he's like, after he got done, he found parts of her in the road and in the car and in the forest. And he says, but that's not the fun part. The fun part is what happened next. Chris, what happened next? Ray, guess. Chris, the police found him? Ray, close. I found him. And then later, he's like, I tracked him and I found him. And when I found him, I leveled off that shotgun right at his chest. Spanky, guess what happened next? Chris, should you be telling me this? Ray, close. I pulled the trigger.
Close. He's stuck in this memory. He's not even looking at him, but he's just kind of like,
yeah, he's looking through him.
Exactly. Yeah. And he tells him, and then I buried him right underneath the den mother of your girlfriend's sorority.
Yeah, it was a vacant lot. It's now where the sorority sits, and we're like, no.
Yeah. And then you have this like really cool sequence where the creeps have gotten to the body of this killer that he buried under the house of the sorority's like den mother.
Yeah.
And they reanimate that body, and he uses his axe to like climb up through the floor, and he gets the den mother and everything, and then the police chase him through the street, and Tom Atkins track down the zombie,
tracks him down again,
and they track him down to like this like alleyway, and then the zombie like turns around to like reveal who it is, and it's like a face he hasn't seen for decades, and it does that cool like Jaws shot where the dolly comes away while the camera zooms in,
yeah,
and then they just fucking they blow the zombie away.
That's why I think it's Ray Cameron's movie.
Yeah,
we don't have Chris doing that.
The kind of emotional arc is more about Ray Cameron.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then, you get the classic kind of Night of the Living Dead sequence where they show up to the sorority house. But before that, we've seen that all of the like frat guys are on a bus, and the whole bus gets like infected with them. And then they show up to the frat house, and Ray Cameron just busts in, with a gun, and what's that? He gives another fantastic line.
Oh yeah, it's goes in, closes the door, looks out the blinds, and the girls are just like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "Well, ladies, the good news is your dates are here." What's the bad news? They're dead.
They're dead. He's got a cigarette in his mouth.
I think he
so
grins
cool.
a little bit. He's
Yeah.
like, they're dead.
So you got this like cool Night of the Living Dead sequence where like the zombies are trying to get in, and then I completely like forget how. Oh, they raid the evidence locker or the weapons locker at the police station.
Yeah.
He holds a gun up to Dick Miller,
Yes.
another great character actor, and they steal a World War II style flamethrower.
Mm-hmm.
And what an image that makes for the cover of the movie, because Cynthia is the one who eventually gets the flamethrower.
Yeah.
So she's in her like homecoming dress, her like gown,
Yeah.
with a flamethrower on. Like, how cool is that?
It's so cool. We've kind of neglected talking about Cynthia, but she does have like a pretty good arc of being more than just like the girl that gets pined after. She is genuinely upset with Brad and wants better and feels like she's being taken advantage of. So then when someone shows up and is like, take this flamethrower, she's like, yeah, because that's the type of person I am now. I'm going to do something instead of just have things happen to me.
Right. Like there's that scene, the zombie Brad shows up.
And she doesn't even look at him.
Yeah. They're like, Cynthia, Brad's here. And she takes him out to the front lawn to kind of like be like, Brad, what's happening with us?
He is hilariously slack-jawed and his eyes are rolled back. It's
And then when she finally looks at him, she's like, zombie. But then Chris shows up with the shotgun, blows Brad away, gives her the flamethrower, and then they just start shooting and burning their way through the night of the living frat boys.
one more thing just to kind of cap this all off, is circling back to what you loved about that scene where he's on the verge of killing himself in his apartment, or his house, by just playing with the lighter. He's got tape on the door so the gas doesn't leak out. When that scene ends and he decides to do something, he's like pacing back and forth in front of the stove and then turns the stove off. I liked that moment, but he does kind of carry that ethos into his plan to get rid of the creeps, which was sacrificing himself by being bait. So he takes himself down. Well, first of all, he goes off with that 6-shooter in the sorority.
Oh, there's that like shot where it's like spinning and he's
Yes.
just, ah!
Yeah, I love that. But he goes down into the basement where there's brains from a biology
that the creeps
class
are trying to get at.
Yeah. So they're down there for that reason, but he's down there like tape over his mouth because he knows the deal at this point, and he's just waiting for them all to accumulate there. And I think he just like takes off the tape and just starts counting down as he's throwing gas. And it's just like, yeah, that's a Ray Cameron thing to do. And of course, we were all waiting for it. We've been waiting for it since we've heard it initially. He hits us with "Thrill Me" as the creeps fly towards him, and he torches that lighter, and then
Sorority house blows up.
yeah.
Night of the Creeps is such a fun movie. Like the first time I watched it, the first time I watched it, I was in like high school actually,
Jealous.
and but I didn't love it. I kind of wrote it off as, it's a cheesy 80s horror movie, and like
Damn.
didn't really pay attention to it.
Yeah. Our brains really aren't that developed in high school.
No,
huh?
they're not.
Yeah.
I mean, I did love The Thing, right? I was like, oh, Night of the Creeps. It ain't no thing,
It's not high art.
Yeah. But then I revisited it. I don't even know, like 5 years ago at this point. And I'm in love with this movie. It's such a fun watch. There's a lot of references for people who love horror movies. And it's like, it is so tightly written. There's a reason everything happens in this movie. Nothing just really like pops up and there's no explanation for it,
Right.
The drama is there. The character motivations are there. It's just a good movie in its own right.
Yeah, and the cast looks like they're having a blast. And from the special features that I've watched with the cast talking about their time on the movie, they still all love each other. Like they had that bond from the set. It was a good vibe throughout, and I believe it when Tom Atkins is like, "Yeah, this is the most fun I've ever had."
Yes,
with a project.
Yeah, I found an interview quote from Tom Atkins, and he says, "This was the most fun film I've ever worked on. It was a pure giggle from beginning to end." The director, Frank Decker, was very young and very talented, and he went on to do The Monster Squad afterwards. I think he wrote a terrific film that was kind of a big put on of 50s horror, and I had great lines in that movie. I think it also just needs to be said, like, this is an episode about Tom Atkins. Tom Atkins is just the purest man, right? He's a treasure.
Yes, every time he drops one of those kind of lines, like, it was a pure giggle.
Yeah.
I go, I want you to be my grandpa. And tell me a story about the movies.
Anytime you see him talk about his career or movies he's done, he's got a big ass grin on his face, and I think he's tickled funny by the fact that people love these movies that I'm sure he'll say it himself, right? He never considered himself a star. He never considered himself a big actor.
Yeah.
I think he's moved on to doing like plays these days, right? But I think he gets a kick out of the fact that, like, there's been a big cult, reevaluation of a lot of the movies that he was in, right? Fog, Night of the Creeps, Halloween 3, Maniac Cop. He was a big part in that movie. And he's a little kid again, when he's talking about these movies. He's such a fucking joy. And everyone else he works with thinks that too.
Yes.
As I was watching some like interviews and special features about it, I had to write down a couple of the things like people said about him.
Okay.
And I'll
share my notes too.
I'll go through them. John Carpenter says, Tom Atkins is a master of his craft. Dean Cundy,
Dean of Darkness,
says he always took the job seriously, but never took himself seriously.
I wrote that down too.
Steve Marshall, who played JC in the movie, said, just being around Tom, you learn what being an actor is. And that was them talking about, he's this older actor who's been in the game a while longer than them. They felt that they could look up to him. Everyone felt comfortable around him. But then my last quote that I wanted, this one's just for you. George Romero says, Tom Atkins is just a cool cat.
Yes, I hope to be the type of person where when I'm grandpa age, people are like, yeah, he was a cool cat.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And he, like, that's the character I think he plays. He, like, as a person, he's just kind of this, kind of cuddly teddy bear grandpa. I mean, at this point, right? But he always plays these, like, tough guy roles. He's just cool, dripping with charisma, just, fun guy.
Love him. I love that the tone he kind of takes in all these interviews for special features on these films. It always comes off as like, the kind of stuff these guys think of, right? Yeah. Which makes me really wonder what he was thinking at the time that he took these gigs. Was he thinking like, yeah, that sounds great, I'll be there, I'll do it? Or was he like, whoa, an axe-murdered girlfriend? What kind of freaky shit are you guys into?
In the trilogy of 80s horror documentaries, In Search of Darkness, you see Tom Atkins like chime in a lot.
Yeah.
And again, he's just like, he's so I've used this word earlier, but it's so apt. He's just tickled funny by by how like outrageous 80s horror movies are.
And that's why we both love Night of the Creeps and why we encourage everyone listening to go check that out. It's just a fun time. We hope you'll be saying thrill me too. But circling back to something you said about, horror movies we've watched in high school that we didn't like at the time that we've now revisited, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
Season of the Witch.
Love it. Didn't like it at the time because, like everyone else in the world, was like, where's Michael Myers? Which is valid, even though I just did that voice. It's valid because they put a 3 on it.
And that's why this movie flopped, right?
Yes.
Like it was billed as Halloween 3. You did Halloween 1 and 2 with Michael Myers. Michael Myers doesn't return for this one. But after the episode that we did on Halloween 2, I don't think that is the fault of like the John Carpenter, Deborah Hill crew, because they originally wanted Halloween 3 to be the part 2. They didn't want to do Michael Myers again. The money people wanted Michael Myers again.
Yep.
And I think because they were chasing the Michael Myers-ness of it, you had the artists come in and actually want to do their idea, and I think that conflicted with what people were expecting of a part 3.
Yeah, because I watched the making of Halloween 3. I think it was called Stand Alone, 30-minute documentary. Yeah, Stand Alone, making of documentary, 30 minutes long on the Blu-ray for Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Very interesting. I love it. At the time it was hated for not having Michael. It just immediately flopped. I think they said it was in theaters for a week.
Wow.
Yeah. That might be an exaggeration, but I'm like, yeah, I can probably see that at the time.
And you know what? I think, not to take it back to Night of the Creeps too much, but I think both of these movies, like if we're talking about like what like connects them, they were both considered flops when they came out.
Yeah.
One of the actors in one of the interviews says he hardly knew anyone who went to go see this movie in the theater. Most of the people who recognize him and talk to him about Night of the Creeps say that they saw it later, after it had kind of gained its kind of cult following. But yeah, Halloween 3, just big financial misfire. But I think that's unfair. I think it's it's so unfair. And once you get over the fact that like Michael Myers isn't in it, and you look at it as the second installment in an anthology series that it was intended to be, then you kind of understand it a little bit more. But what's it about? Right? Like, why is Michael Myers not in it? Well, it's not a slasher movie, right? It's a movie about this kind of evil corporation that is using Halloween for their kind of culty pagan ritual, right? Such a wild idea.
Yeah. Yeah, they were cooking for sure. Like, and not just in like the story department, but that is an interesting story about like the writing credits, because it just says written by and directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. But the way he tells it is that there was an original idea like pitched by Deborah Hill. And then they hired...
She wanted to do something about like kind of combining like witchcraft and like the commercialization of Halloween.
Yes. Visionary, first of all.
Yeah.
So they hired this guy named Nigel Neal, who was big at the time, to write a draft of the script. And they got that. Apparently he had kind of a chip on his shoulder from like his like British television success. But Wallace says they used about 60% of what's in the movie. as like from that initial draft. And John Carpenter was the first to do a rewrite on it. And Wallace says, quote, "He may have been surprised that his protege, me, wasn't all that enamored with what he had done. So I did a rewrite." So you can see what a ridiculous credit that is. Just about the sole credit that he gets.
Right.
He's like, no.
I think that also kind of signals a little bit to like one thing that I think is really cool is a handful of the movies that we have talked about, there's kind of a lot of like of the same people. We're hearing a lot of the same names, right? So
Yeah.
Who's back, right? Dean Cundey is back.
Dean of Darkness.
He's back as the cinematographer. He shot the first 3 Halloween movies. And then we have of course, John Carpenter, Deborah Hill as producers, John doing the music again, Dick Warlock doing stunts. Mm-hmm. And we remember Dick was the stunt coordinator in Halloween 2 and Michael Myers himself.
Which that's kind of sweet that they were pretty much against Halloween 2 existing.
Yeah.
But they were like, yeah, Dick, come on back.
Yeah, you're an all right guy, Dick.
You're an all right guy.
And then we have Tommy Lee Wallace coming in as the director. And, if we remember, Tommy Lee Wallace, not only really good childhood friend of John Carpenter, was the production designer on the first 2 Halloween films.
Yeah. And I think even Dean Cundey says the editor.
I saw that on his IMDb. It says film editor, and I am not entirely sure what the difference is between editor and film editor. And I'm pretty sure there's some production people who could, probably shaking their heads at me right now. But
it's like he obviously did the rough cut. No,
I've never shot on film. I don't know what a fucking film editor is. But I think that really speaks to what they were trying to do with these movies, right? They were trying to create an anthology series. And I love the fact that like all 3 of these movies, Halloween 1, 2, and 3, despite, the third one being much different in story from that one, all look and feel very similar. And so yes. I really love that it carries the same kind of tone and look like it looks like the other 2 movies.
Yeah.
Because we got Dean.
Just think of the opening. The opening credits of the lines on the CRTV filling up, and
you've got that John Carpenter synthy score coming in.
So good, yeah, it's great. But I think that visual of the orange lines coming up, like, definitely complements it very well. And then by the end of the sequence, it's a pumpkin.
Yep.
Remind you of any Halloween openings? Come on, people. Who cares about Michael? You got the pumpkin.
Right.
Shut up and take it. You got the pumpkin.
They were doing something, man.
Yeah. And then the song after that, when like the first like live action stuff happens after the opening credits, what is it called? Chariots of Pumpkins. It rules. I'm saying that just so people. Yes, I'm saying that so people look up Chariots of Pumpkins and go, yeah, I'm thinking I'm in.
Yeah. This movie sounds great. The soundscapes that they created are fantastic.
Yeah. And then you even mentioned like after that opening sequence when it kind of calms down a little bit, that it reminded you of The Fog. Just like empty.
There's a lot of kind of establishing shots
yes.
that like show just like an emptiness.
Yeah. There's room in the frame for evil to lurk.
And then you see this old man kind of running through the darkness. He's running away from something, and eventually winds up in a hospital. And who works at the hospital?
Tom Atkins, our deadbeat doctor. I said he got that doc in him.
He does, because again, dripping with charisma and swagger, he plays this like heavy drinking philandering doctor. He's got that dirty dog swagger.
We both wrote a version of how much of a dog he is.
He's got that dirty dog swagger. And it feels like he's had sex with every woman he interacts with in this movie.
But I think in like a pleasurable way.
No, yeah. Like they like him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a likable guy in this movie.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
They're like, sure, break me off a piece.
It's never fully established whether Nancy Loomis is his current wife or his ex-wife.
I think he mentions it right after the initial sequence at the hospital, which, yeah, he says like, oh, I got my ex-wife on the phone.
Okay, it is his ex-wife. Okay.
Yeah, which kind of softens the womanizing aspect of him a little bit. It's
So
like,
he's not
a single guy.
I take it back.
Yeah, he's just cruising.
Yeah.
I also think it's a little bit funny to me that there's a very good sequence in the hospital for Halloween 3 that only takes like 10 or so minutes, and I think it's probably better than the entirety of H2 that takes place in a hospital.
You're talking about when the automaton guy comes in and kills the... Oh my God. Talk about that kill. Talk about that fucking kill. It's so good.
I feel like you want to, so just jump in wherever. But yeah, he just like comes into the room where the old man is now like after he's like they're all going to kill us. Yeah. They're all going to kill us. And yeah, the automaton, well, we just think it's a very quiet guy that just strolls in, gets his hands on his face, and then just starts to seep his thumbs into the guy's eyes. And we're like, oh yeah, that's gnarly. That's a bad way to go. And then they take it a step further.
Yeah. He like pinches his fingers around his septum, like through his eyes and around his, and then fucking yanks his septum out.
And you hear that.
The kills in this movie are gnarly as shit. They go way harder than anything you see in Halloween 1 or 2.
That's fair. That's fair to group Halloween 1 into it too.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you know, John Carpenter was more about the suspense than the gore anyways. But, you know, Tommy Lee Wallace did not give a fuck. He was like, I'm a production designer. I'm going to show off some stuff that's going to make you go, ew.
Yeah.
But so, you know, the old man gets killed. Everyone's like, what the hell? The night nurse comes in. She screams because she sees the dead body. And then they all run out because they're like, that man, he did it, you know, and
who's just walking out of the hospital. He's not running.
He's slowly walking out. Right. And the crazy thing is, when I first saw this movie as a kid, I was expecting a Michael Myers, and I was like, is this just Michael Myers without a mask on?
Yep. Very nonchalantly just dropped it. He's just a guy. Okay.
And then he gets into a car and sets himself on fire.
I think he does like a mob death. He just turns it on and it blows up.
No, I think he pours gasoline on himself.
Oh,
and then lights himself on fire. Which, you know, if you haven't seen the rest of the movie before, you're just like, what?
Yeah.
Why? What's going on? Which is really effective, right? Because the next kind of sequence of events that happens is the daughter of that man comes in to identify the body, and catches the eye of Dr. Chalice.
Yeah. Ellie Grimbridge, played by Stacey Nelkin. She comes in.
Yeah, and that basically leads to you know, she wants to figure out like why her dad was murdered.
Yeah.
So she's been, you know, investigating it, and she's like, well, the last thing that he did before you know, he ended up being killed, he owns a hardware store, and he had gone up to Santa Mira where they're producing these masks that are like the big thing this Halloween. Every kid wants these special masks.
Yeah. Which we've somehow avoided talking about.
we see them at the beginning of the movie when he meets with Nancy Loomis and his kids. He gives his kids some like cheapo masks,
Dog shit masks. Deadbeat duck.
You can see their disappointment on they pull it out and they're just like, the fuck is this?
Yeah. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. They're like, but Mom already got us good masks.
Yeah. And then they just throw on the TV and you hear it.
Bum, 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 bum. 3 more days till Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. What an annoying fucking jingle, but like they hit it out of the park. Is like that's something that would be a commercial.
Yeah. And I like that came about because of budget constraints. They didn't have enough money to, as Tommy Lee Wallace says, hire a guy to do a jingle.
Yeah.
So
I think Deborah Hill was like, use My Fair Lady because it's in the public domain.
Yeah,
you don't have to pay for it.
London Bridge.
London Bridge is falling down.
Yeah.
As the basis for the jingle.
Yeah, and then we haven't said his name yet, but I think he deserves credit. Alan Howarth. I'm probably butchering that name. He also like co-wrote and co-produced the music with John Carpenter. So he was talking about in the documentary. He's like, yeah, and then I just threw that synth in the back. That boom, 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 boom.
Do you know who recorded the 3 more days till Halloween?
That's Tommy Lee Wallace, baby.
The man himself.
Because he just said it normally and they sped it up. He's like, yeah, like chipmunk style.
They did the chipmunks thing with it. And then he's also the voice of the narrator that's like, get your masks now, you know?
Yeah. The horror-thon. Stay tuned.
I thought that was a really cool.
That is
touch.
cool. We get 2 Tommy Lee Wallaces for the price of 1 in that annoying ad that plays throughout the movie.
And by the way, what a cool guy Tommy Lee Wallace seems to be. He just seems like he was like a surfer, you know?
Yeah.
Again, a man who was very talented and did not get to make as many movies as he should have been allowed to make, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Tom Atkins, Dr. Chalice, tells Ellie, okay, I'm as disturbed by your father's murder as you are. I want to help you figure out what happened.
Yeah. He goes, not to make it about me, but that happened at my hospital.
Yes. Let's get down to the bottom of this. Yeah. So they decide to drive up to the Santa Mira place, which was the last place he was together.
Mm. Oh, I love that. Can I set that? Can we rewind just a little bit?
Okay.
Because I love that he's a deadbeat duck, right?
Yeah.
I'm joking because he loves his kids. It's just that ex-wife of his. Yeah. But he's letting her know. He's like, hey, I got like a thing for work. I gotta do.
He's at a payphone.
A payphone. Being like, I got a thing for work. Oh, the place that I'm gonna be at? Oh no, I don't know.
Sorry, you're breaking up. Hangs up, and then grabs a 6-pack of Miller High Life off the top of the payphone and walks over to the car.
Skips over to the car like a boy howdy.
He's like, I'm gonna get down to the bottom of this murder, but I'm also gonna get down on you later.
Mm-hmm. He's like, there's 2 bottoms I'm getting.
So yeah, immediately, he's gonna lay his Tom Atkins charm on this girl. She has no idea what's coming her way, or maybe she does.
I think she does because in the making of, Stacey Nelkin, who played Ellie, says, well, first talking about Tom Atkins, she says that Atkins was not egotistical. He was gracious and charming, and just was a great scene partner and just a good guy. So she felt very comfortable, had a good time on the set. But on her character, what she said she liked about it, she's like, she was a strong girl. She didn't give up. And she liked that flirtatious aspect of her. And she's like, she went for what she wanted.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
She was not seduced by Dr. Chalice.
Yeah.
They were both playing a game.
Yeah.
And they both won.
He's like, I've got beer. And she's like, where do you want to sleep?
I wrote
You got
down the line.
Okay,
line
go
for line. So they get to this town, which he like slyly says like maybe we should get separate rooms.
Yeah.
And then they only get one room.
Yeah.
And that's never mentioned again. So
I think she says, but we're supposed to be a married couple, right?
oh my God, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was her idea.
Yeah.
He was just being a gentleman.
Yeah.
he opened the door and she walked through it. And so, they've done a little bit of investigating around the town. And they get back to the hotel and he says something like, we better get some shut eye. And then
It's getting late. I need a drink.
It's getting late. I need a drink. And then she says, where are you going to sleep, Dr. Chalice? And he just stares at her. And he goes, I think that's a really dumb question, Miss Gimbridge. And then he goes and lands a smack on her. And then,
A kiss. He doesn't hit her. He's not that guy.
Riz that cannot be beat.
No. People just couldn't handle a guy with a head that big and charisma off the charts. They said that guy doesn't exist. That man isn't fucking real. And he is, and he's my grandpa.
So yeah, after they get the love making out of the way, we can get to the rest of the story. No, wait. Okay, so speaking of fantastic kills,
Yeah.
while that's happening, we cut over to another room in the hotel, right? Like all these people have come to this town because they're trying to get their orders in for these masks that all the kids want. And so there's a woman who I think she says she owns a store in like San Francisco or something.
Yes.
And so she's in her room and she's looking at one of the masks, and then this like little chip falls off the mask. She turns it around, she looks, and there's like a computer chip inside it. And she's like, what the hell's that? And she starts dicking around with it, and then it just like shoots an electric bolt right at her face.
Yeah.
And the result of that is nuts. it peeled her lips back, and like her eyes are bloodshot. It just utterly fucks this woman up.
Yeah.
And like the next morning, they look outside and there's people like loading her into like an ambulance, and he comes up, he's like, oh, I'm a doctor, I can take a look. And like all these men in the suits, the atomic, they're just like, no, but they don't listen to him. And then the owner of the company that makes the masks comes out and he's like, oh, we have an excellent medical facility at the factory, we'll take care of it.
Yeah, the state of the art.
Yeah.
And he goes, Irish? No.
So then I think that's their next target, right? They're like, okay, there's something up at this factory. We got to go check it out.
Yeah, I think we've heard rumblings of this Connell Cochran figure, but this is the first time we see him.
Yes.
And he's dismissive. He's like, don't worry your pretty little head, doctor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One thing we haven't mentioned yet, I think it's like towards the beginning of the movie, there's this like news report that a stone, I don't think from Stonehenge, but like from a Stonehenge like, site has gone missing. I'm
willing to bet it was Stonehenge. I think they were just like, can you believe it? Someone stole a stone from Stonehenge.
And that, I think that factors in a little later. But that's important. So they get to the factory and they kind of go on this like Willy Wonka-esque tour of the factory.
Oh yeah, with another beautiful cast of characters, like the ugly Americans, basically, just like
he's the number one seller of these masks, and he's been like invited to the factory to come take a look at like some a special new product that they have.
Yeah, with his wife who doesn't want to be there.
Yeah,
barely likes him and their shit kid.
I would call her a trophy wife, but
she is no prize.
Yeah. And then
neither is he, honestly.
No, not at all. And then the kid who, like Willy Wonka, is like the Willy Wonka better than me. Who's the girl? The brat.
Oh, he's the I think he's the Veruca Salt.
He's the Veruca Salt of this. He's just like, when am I gonna get my thing I want?
Yeah.
And in a cruel twist of fate, they like lead them into this room and they're like, you're gonna test our new product. And the parents are sitting on the couch and the commercial, like 3 more days to Halloween, comes on. And I think this is a really cool thing that they did, because it like is foreshadowing what their plan is for Halloween night. And it's like the commercial, which all the kids have been listening to all October, comes on and is like, okay, now it's time to put on your mask.
Yeah.
And he puts it on, and then like, yeah, it's almost like the music triggers the chip inside it, and it I can't even describe what it does to this kid.
Yeah, it like silently kills him.
Yeah, it like he's wearing the pumpkin.
Yeah.
No,
it's a pumpkin.
It's the pumpkin.
Yeah,
he's wearing the pumpkin
all
mask,
scrunched when he,
and his head turns into a rotted pumpkin.
Yeah,
which is metal as fuck.
Yeah, and he silently just kind of grips his ears and tries to rip off the mask, but just drops dead.
Yeah. And then a bunch of bugs start coming out of the like eye holes.
At the very least. And then a snake comes out.
For some reason, a diamondback rattlesnake.
Why the fuck not? That's the
reason. And then I think the dad gets bit by the snake.
Yeah, that's what drops him. I think because the mom just passes out of just like pure shock.
So, that's fun. Meanwhile, meanwhile, Tom Atkins is, he's sleuthing around.
No, he actually, so Connell made him watch that.
Right. He's tied up. Yeah. Okay.
No, he's like in the facility part of it. So they've you kind of see like the Stonehenge-ish kind of stone or whatever.
Yeah.
And just, again, state-of-the-art computers, bleep blorp, bleep blorp.
Yeah.
Lights showing up on panels. And he's like, yeah, here's a taste of like what we've got in store for you, Daniel. And he can't do anything about it, but he's made to watch it. And it's cool because it kind of shows you the lengths that the villain is willing to go to. He just killed his best salesman and his family, and just said, yeah, it works.
Well, I think, I think it's like a really cool motivation to give a villain. Cause like his whole thing, like he has his like Dr. Evil speech, right? He's like, I'm going to tell you what, my plan is, my motivation. And it's that people have lost the old ways of, worshiping the old gods and commemorating Samhain. And so this is his way of conducting like a mass sacrifice, but like on a commercialized, the globalized scale, but like killing all the children in America.
Yeah.
What a like maniacal fucking plan, right?
Yeah. Do you think Michael Myers had that fucking plan in mind? Nah. He's going old school. He's going door to door. This guy's like, think bigger. Okay.
What's the last twist of the movie we get?
The last twist. So we have to skip a couple because the movie does throw a couple twists at you in the end.
Ooh. Okay. There's one that I really like.
Sure. Go for it.
From a storytelling perspective. Yeah. As Tom Atkins is kind of sneaking his way through this factory, he comes to a room and he sees this old woman sitting down in the corner, and he's like, "Miss," and he touches her, and her like head falls off, and you realize she is like an old school automaton.
Yeah, a prototype, just
like a mechanical person. And he's like, what the fuck? And then not long after that, Tom Atkins gets subdued, and Connell Cochran comes up and he's holding the head that fell off, and he's like, this was priceless. This was an early model. He says something like that, and you get the idea without them having to really spell it out for you that like all of his henchmen are also automatons. Like this is what he does. He's a tinkerer, and he's made these machine men to do his bidding for him. Yeah. I think in a way, Tommy Lee Wallace also says, he says Halloween was a knife movie. This is Halloween 3 is a pod movie, meaning like a pod person kind of movie.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah. So that leads into the next kind of twist is when they defeat the bad guys, the factory explodes, whatever. They overloaded the stone and the stone blew up.
Yeah. I love the slow clap from Conal Cochran too. As he looks up at Atkins, because he's like, "You won." Yeah. But it's like, did you? If someone looks at you and slow claps like that before they get got, I feel like it's too late. But you did your best. I feel like that's what he's saying with that kind of slow clap. And
he's like, this train is going too fast for you to even stop. You know? Yeah. To go back to something you said about Night of the Creeps, where they just kind of hit random buttons and it works. Yeah. That's what Tom Atkins does. he like distracts all the scientists that are working on these computers, and he goes in and he just presses buttons, and that's what like overloads the.
Yeah. And then the boom, 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 and they're like, "Who hit the boom, 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 boom?" He just gets a box of the silver shamrock buttons, throws them down, and they. Kill everyone.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And so he and Ellie are driving away. She's been, mysteriously missing for a big portion of the movie.
Yeah. During the "Do you know what Halloween's all about" speech?
Yeah.
He's been trying to find her.
They blew up the factory, but they're like we still got to stop the broadcast.
Yeah.
And she turns to him and she starts trying to like rip his head off. Yeah. And it's revealed that she has been turned into one of these automaton people. And I guess a big question, for the fan base is like, was she always an automaton or did she get turned into one? And I think I asked you that while we were watching it. I was like, did they hollow her out, or did they? That was my question. I was like, did they hollow her out and put like machine parts in her, or did they make like a mold of her body and create an automaton from scratch?
And that's kind of a question I don't want answered. I want that. Yeah. I want to think about that every time I rewatch it. It's like, is this the real Ellie?
Right.
Or is this Robo Ellie?
And I think that that also kind of goes like, okay, are the rest of the people in this town the kind of machine pod people too?
Yeah.
Because there is another part. There's like the town drunkard that Dr. Chalice gets. He gets like information from him.
Yeah, that's when we get the biggest Conal Cochran lore drop.
Yes,
as it will.
And then the town drunk, he like stumbles away and gets confronted by a couple of the automatons, and they just straight up rip his head off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he gets away from Machine Ellie, and then finds his way to a gas station, which we saw
the gas station
earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
And he's like, I need a phone. And he calls someone. I don't know who he calls. I don't know who he's on the phone with. Is it 911?
It doesn't matter, because like he's a doctor. He's got connections. It's like, I'm a doctor. Put me on the phone with the TV people.
Yeah, he knows who to call. And so he's like, you gotta stop the message. Don't like I don't need to prove anything. Just stop the message. So they stopped the first channel, and then the second channel. And he's like, but the third channel, where is it? Stop the third channel.
Yeah, it's still on. Stop it, please, for God's sake, stop it.
Stop it. Yeah. And then the movie ends, and we don't get to see if he stopped Cochran's plan.
No, But our man Tom Atkins has a theory.
The just wonderful grandpa he is.
Yeah. His theory is, I think it ends happy.
So simple and joyful. I love
He's
it.
like, I think they stopped it. The interviewer, you can hear the interviewer say, "You're an optimist," and he says, "I think I am. Yeah, but my wife wouldn't agree." Another little Atkinsism is there's two I really want to talk about from Halloween 3, and one more recently what we talked about with Robo Ellie.
Uh-huh.
He says, "We spent a lot of time together on that set, and then she tried to kill me." What was that about? What was that about? I love that. He's like, "What was that about, huh?" Just when you think you know a gal, you know. Another one I love, another little anecdote, is when he was talking about the physicality of the role, about all the running up and down the street that he had to do, and climbing out of windows and jumping out of windows and running up ladders. He says, going across the roof and jumping down here and doing that, and half of it isn't even in the movie. And then he smiles and he's like, "I love being an actor." And as much as he loves being an actor, I love watching him in the movies. And I couldn't think of two better movies than Night of the Creeps, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. What do you think, Jake? Tom Atkins of it all.
I love these movies. If you're looking for a great kind of double feature where you can watch an actor who you don't get to watch a whole lot,
No.
just really shine and really just be everything in these movies, watch these two movies, Night of the Creeps, Halloween 3. Fantastic movies that, they didn't get their due when they came out, but guess what? You can watch them now, enjoy them now. They're fantastic.
Yeah, you can watch them like we watched them. We own the physical copies of each of these, the Scream Factory Blu-rays, and hopefully, if we've done our jobs right, you'll also be saying, Tom Atkins, wow.
And that's it for this episode of PhantasmaCast, folks. We had a great time talking about two really fun movies. Join us next time, where we're going to be watching two movies about two different kinds of dicks.
A dick double feature. A double dick feature.
Triple dick alliterative.
Two dicks for the price of one.
Two movies about two different kinds of private detectives.
You could say they're dudes.
We're on the social medias now,
All
so
of
just search PhantasmaCast in your favorite social media network.
Yeah.
And,
look for the little logo.
Yeah, it's a little TV that says PhantasmaCast on it.
That's it.
We'll see you next time, guys.
Bye.